Hello and welcome to the Two Robbies Podcast, your destination for in-depth discussion and analysis of the Premier League and the Champions League. I'm Robbie Mustoe, he's Robbie Earle, and here are today's topics. Man City place one hand on the trophy after sweeping aside Everton, and Arsenal fall at home to Brighton. Guardiola's men now can be Premier League champions next weekend. Plus, an important 3 points for Manchester United over Wolves, while Newcastle draw at Leeds, a crucial point earned by Nottingham Forest at Stamford Bridge, and farewell to Southampton, who are heading back to the Championship. That's what we've got coming up in today's episode.
Okay, my friends, should we, how do you want to kick this off? So should we talk about how the day unfolded with Manchester City going to Goodison Park, an Everton team that just won 5-1 against Brighton, buoyed by that result. A full and packed Goodison Park. Many suggesting in the run-in for City this might be a game that they drop points, sandwiched between the two Madrid games, Rob. Although I thought Everton well set up and decent organisation in the first 30 minutes and try to break up City's play, eventually City get to you, don't they, and do their thing.
Yeah, eventually it happened, yeah. I mean, I did think that, I thought Everton were I guess, to be expected, Rob.
Yeah.
Sat back real quick. They sat back, they were defensive. I would love, and I know it's easier to say it than do it, of course, and I often, I think when we've seen Man City rattled before, Rob, I just felt like a Goodison Park on the back of a great result against Brighton, have a bit of a go, engage a little bit, try and rattle them, try and ruffle the feathers a little bit. Stuff that I love to see when you're at home against, the champions. But it was a defensive kind of posture, sitting right back in there. And they did frustrate for a little bit of time.
That said, Rob, just before you move on, before you move on, I thought they had one or two situations where they trying to break good play. They had a transition, got into Calvert-Lewin, Decore, I think, went through once, Wobie on the other side. And it was poor passing, Rob. It was poor quality, poor decision-making. Gave the ball away in the opportunities when you just might ruffle those feathers, as you were saying, get a few shots on target, put City a little bit on the back foot.
Yeah, that's what you were hoping for. I mean, City rested De Bruyne, rested John Stones, rested Jack Grealish, made the changes that we expected. I mean, of course, they got brilliant players coming back in. They got brilliant players. They made the changes. They win the game 3-0. I just wanted Everton to have a little bit more of a go. That's what my main kind of disappointment is. And I know there's a mismatch, and I know all the stuff. I know, the reasons for not doing that. But I just think, given last week, given that atmosphere, given that stadium, I just thought they made it. Even from the first whistle, they sat back, and then Everton, City, then, oh great, here's the ball, thank you. Progress up the field, and then obviously just trying to find a way through. We should cut quickly, Rob, I think, to the chase here. We all know what a great side City are, but just the difference makers in today's game. I talked about players that weren't playing, and Ilkay Gundogan, Rob, we've mentioned him many times on this podcast, right? And we've given him, underappreciated is something we do every weekend on the back of a Premier League match day, and we'll kind of scour around a little bit. I mean, he's won it. Sometimes we don't obviously want to pick the same guy multiple times, and we're not doing that. But the fact that this guy's contract's up in June, that he can't at the moment find an agreement with Manchester City. There's a strong link with Barcelona. They want to give him the duration of contract that I think he's looking for. Yeah. I think that may be the stumbling block at Man City. Is it not just the world that underappreciates Ilkay Gundogan? Is Man City, Rob? Do Man City also underappreciate this guy who is a stunning footballer?
I think you put the note on in our WhatsApp group or whatever, but if he does leave the Premier League at the end of the season with Manchester City as a title winner and however many trophies they have, I think in recognition of what he does, how he does it, the person that he is, we should call it the Gundogan Award. And it should be the underappreciated player of the week. And everybody would know straight away. I said today, Robbie, he's an absolute manager's dream. He's high-quality footballer, with low maintenance. I mean, he's a captain of the football club. He does everything the right way. Really interesting as today was playing out, because I kind of thought to myself, let's just go back a week. And don't you remember a 2-0 up against Leeds? Haaland gave Gundogan the ball. Gundogan missed the penalty. Pep wasn't happy with him. He bought him off. He didn't speak to him and all that. And again, I could talk about the Pep poke. That's Pep just making sure messages are going in and things are done right. Comes up today with a performance, Rob, that's so City that if on the days when all that good football and all the possession and all the width and the runs and things don't actually get them the goal, they kind of turn to another mode. They go click, individual mode. KDB day. Phil Foden day, Ilkay Gundogan day, Jack Grealish day, Erling Haaland day. Somebody in that team can find special, high-end, technical moments to win them the game. It's almost a bit unfair that they can have that mode as well. They should either be a great team or have some great individuals. But it's like they've got the combination of both.
I'm gonna throw this back in two questions, two parts, Rob, here, right?
Okay.
First part, I want to follow up on Ilkay Gundogan, because I was sat watching it. It's Mother's Day, isn't it? And happy Mother's Day to all the mums out there. Our two sons are back with us, and we're enjoying them. And so I enjoyed having the time when my son's watching football. Of course, they absolutely love it. We did watch the Middlesbrough game in the playoff first leg.
Up the Borough
this morning, Saturday. Up the Borough, 0-0 away at Coventry. So good chance to get to the playoff final, which is the day before the final day. But we were talking about Gundogan, and I said to Elliot, I said, it's an example of an individual player that's not actually brilliant at anything. He's not big and powerful. He's not fast. He's not super skillful and technical. I mean, he's a lot of things that he's just... And of course, what it is his football IQ, his soccer IQ, his intelligence, his decision-making, his just understanding of the game and the cleverness that he's got. But do you know what I mean, Rob? Raw talk, apart from that, which obviously is a lot, it's not as though he brings so much in one department of an individual player that he's impossible to play against. He's so blimmin' effective of people worrying about Haaland, worrying about other players, that he sneaks into these little positions, given the license from his manager to do that because of the way they organise midfield. But he never gives the ball away. He scores a ton of goals when the team needs goals. Erling Haaland, for large parts, didn't touch the ball. And yet he can step up, like you said. He'll turns up and they think, right, you know what, I need to do something here going forward. Do you know what I mean, Rob, in terms of him? So let me let you respond to that before I get on to the second part.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I slightly challenge that opinion, I'd have to say. Total respect for what you're saying. And I get exactly what you're saying. There's no one thing that sets him apart. But it reminds me, Rob, of like if any young player is out there, you could mould yourself on Ilkay Gundogan and develop your game in so many parts that the sum of it makes you an outstanding individual. No, I was trying to think in my head, as you were talking, I was trying to think, who could I kind of say is at that level? And do you remember Kaká for Brazil? Who sometimes you used to look at and think, well, he isn't super powerful, he wasn't super this, he wasn't that. Well, but I saw him live, Rob, on 2 or 3 occasions and was blown away at how good at everything he was. Technical, football IQ, timing of runs, getting in the box.
But he could run by people, Rob. He's different. I mean, he could dribble by people brilliantly.
Gundogan's got. I would say Gundogan's timing is probably as good as thing. You don't have to be quick. You don't have to be super quick and powerful runner to get in the box. You've got to know when to go and where to go. And Gundogan's got a GPS in his head, mate. He's got that one sorted. So I do hear you, but I slightly challenge like that. There's no great single attributes. I think the combination of...
Well, there isn't. Well, what is it? Yeah,
his timing of runs and his finishing right away. I'll take you there.
Right.
His timing of runs and his finishing. Because he often holds as a 6 and sometimes as an 8. If he was given free license, Rob, there's 15 goals in Ilkay Gundogan all season long. All season long.
But you'd never think it. Yeah, I know, but you just never think it, would you? But anyway, just on the team, Rob.
Yeah.
Right? They're on the brink of winning it now, and we'll we won't go too crazy right now about this.
No.
And I know it's only Everton and they're struggling and stuff, but in terms of teams, Rob, we've had in the Premier League, right? And we've played against a ton of them a little bit earlier on. We've watched them, of course, very closely over the last 10 years. I mean, do we have to? We have got to start saying, is this the best team ever?
Yeah.
And I know, I'm thinking that. I am looking at the league table and I'm thinking of, Chelsea are awful. Liverpool have had a terrible year. Spurs are, what they are right now. I mean, lots of teams have fallen away.
Yeah.
But the dominance, Rob, they're going to get another 100 goals probably. The points total is going to be at 90 plus. I mean, when do we have to? I mean, I know the Champions League is coming up, and I know a lot of people, for them to be the best English team they've ever seen, they're going to have to win that. And I got to agree with that, to be fair. But if they win the Champions League, Rob, and if they get this treble this year, could have Invincibles, could have Fergie Man United, could have Mourinho Chelsea. Are they that? I mean, I don't know. I'm starting to get to a point with the dominance in the Premier League, with other teams over recent seasons, maybe not this year, having strong teams. I mean, who's been better?
It's a good point, and I think what we have to do at this stage is start to credit them more on what they do, Rob. And I had a couple of stats in terms of, like you say, 2 of the 3 most points returns in Premier League history Man City have got. I think it's 3 of the 4 most goals ever scored in the Premier League history Man City have got. And I think it's credit. It almost feels to me like we've got to give more credit for now, but most of the best and looking back always comes when Pep's gone and you've got the legacy of what the record is. It kind of feels you're in the moment now, and it's harder to maybe have those kind of conversations or be more as definitive because it's still going and we don't know what else is coming out of here. But the one thing Bex asked me today, and I said to her about one of the things that I don't think is talked enough about is the mentality of Manchester City. I think we talk about the mentality of the teams who are trying to chase them or overhaul them. So the Liverpools, and they broke Liverpool. Liverpool almost had to have a season off to recharge and look like they're going to come again. They broke Arsenal, an Arsenal team that one time were purring and going on. They broke them in the end. I just never felt Arsenal were in the right place today after the City win. They never showboat, Rob. They never look like, never take a liberty in a moment of a game. You know, sometimes even back in the day when we were playing, sometimes at 3-0 up, I've kind of thought, somebody's coming, I'll just stick it through his legs and go the other side and get it. And actually, I used to think, that's not me. I'm not that player. But I never see a Manchester City player doing anything like that, Rob, that is for their benefit or for an individual thing. It's always about the team and the group. And I loved after the game. I'll just let it come in. I loved after the game when Jack Grealish was obviously Yerry Mina was trying to be Rudiger today and didn't do it that well. But he was trying to get under Haaland's skin when he there. He was trying to get under Grealish's skin. And when the final whistle blown, there was obviously words between Mina and Grealish and words between Grealish and Doucouré. And I loved, mate, that Erling Haaland got himself off the bench, ran onto the pitch and stood next to Jack and put his arm as if to say, go on then, who's coming? Like his bodyguard, like he's taking care of one of his own, Rob. And that is also something that's, what it's like when your teammates have got your back. You just feel like you there's a strength that isn't going to break you.
No, that's right. Everything that you want from a team, they've got it, haven't they? And like you said, the expectations and dealing with that, from one season to the next season, repeating. It's remarkable what they're doing. The only thing I would say, mate, and I don't want to put a downer on this, but I think it's, I think there's a lot of fans out there, Rob, of different clubs that would be saying to the us now, what about the charges?
Yeah.
What about the over 100 charges from the Premier League of financial fair play irregularities? And the quicker that can be squashed, the football club or however you say they've got to prove against them or they've got to prove their innocence, whichever way it is, the sooner that can be put to bed, then we can switch off that little, because I have it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if
it's
you
an
have it,
asterisk, isn't it? It's an asterisk at the
if?
moment. Yeah.
A little bit. A little bit until it's put to bed.
Until it's dealt with, but we innocent and proven guilty in many respects. We've got to give them the praise that we can give them now. If we find out that things haven't been done right and not, then likewise we can take that praise back and we can reassess our thoughts. Yeah. But based on what we're seeing, based on what we know, and that nothing else has been proven right now, mate, this is the best team we've ever seen in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're there, and again, I think when it's confirmed, we'll go into a little bit more detail. But no, really too good today. Too good for Everton. Everton will, of course, they'll look to fight in the last remaining games for them.
Yeah,
they've
Wolves
got
and Bournemouth, Rob,
and Bournemouth away.
Did you see the
points, Rob? They need a win.
Just your thought on the Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Now we're hearing. Do you think that was Sean Dyche at 2-0 down, going, don't see us getting anything out of this one. He's a little bit fragile. No. I can rest him up for today and get him right for the next 2 games.
No, my understanding, Rob, is, which I think is crazy. If that, my understanding, and again, my son's research more than I do, I think. But my youngest said that he'd read somewhere that he had a tight groin. Apparently, there was a tight groin. I think he was seen stretching, Rob, just before he went off. Before half time. So I can't imagine that you at 2-0, you don't take off your best player at home. I don't care who it's against. Only it's 1 goal. So
against City, where I don't know. I think I might differ. I think I might say to him, knowing how he is.
Yeah, but listen, if he's got a tight groin, given the situation, you're coming off. But if he hasn't got a tight groin, right, and there's nothing wrong with him, are you okay with him coming off like that then? Because I wouldn't be.
I'm more okay if I've got him, if I know he's going to be fit, or I can help him be fit for the 2 games against Wolves and Bournemouth that might decide on me staying up. Yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with taking him off. Because I wouldn't want him to go in a challenge, jump for a ball, or get himself injured in the second half in a game that we might not win, and I don't get him for 2 games. That's just how I look at it. Yeah. I would bet back myself. Different if the game's in the balance, or we think this Man City, they're 2-0 up. We ain't even going to see the ball most of the time, and I don't want to. I've got to wrap him in cotton wool because he can be a difference maker.
Yeah, I just disagree. I disagree, Robert. If he's fit at half time, if it goes to 3-0, I get it. If it's 3-0, there's half an hour left. I get it at that point, but I wouldn't. I'd want him out there for, but I guess we're different. We're different on that one, because if I'm a fan there, Everton, it's 2-0. Yeah, difficult, and they're great, but crikey, we've seen all sorts of teams, concede goals and you're back in it, and at Goodison Park gets flying. So not a 2-0, but I think there's
probably an injury, like you say. Sean Dyche has done it to protect himself. Either way, they're going to need Dominic Calvert-Lewin fit and firing in those last couple of games if they're going to get the results. Yeah, they got to win one of them, Rob, haven't they? Yeah, they got to win one to get to 35 points. Got to win one of those 2 games. Absolutely. So let's talk about the consequences of the result for Manchester City 3-0 at Goodison Park. So we went to the later kickoff today. The Emirates was full. It was buzzing. It was expectant. Arsenal were hosting a Brighton team that had just been turned over by Everton, a 5-1 result that nobody saw coming, against an Arsenal team that put in a really good performance that we both talked of against Newcastle United. So I think there was hope and anticipation and ambition that Arsenal could win out from here on into the rest of the season, Rob. Take themselves to 90 points, push City as far as they can, and if City go on and win it, then, well played. That wasn't the case, and I don't know if you heard Mikel Arteta after the game, was quite scathing, actually, in the second half. What did he say, Rob? I didn't hear him. So he said in the first half, they gave us problems with the way they played, their build-up, obviously going long at times over the press. That gave us problems. He also talked about their game management. They never allowed Arsenal to get in a rhythm. But actually, second half, he just said that wasn't good enough from us, and that's unacceptable, and I apologise to the fans, and that my players know that. So, quite strong and quite brutal to the point, Rob, where he just didn't feel his team certainly turned up in the second half when questions were being asked.
Okay, so I've got a lot to say about this, Rob. Obviously, it's an incredible game of football. Yeah. Incredible game of football. I want to start with a couple of things. I want to start again by disagreeing with you about something here. Yeah. And I think on the air, again, of course, I watched the show today. Yeah. And the bit about, because Man City won earlier, that affected Arsenal going into the game. I just don't think that's got to be the case, Rob. Given that Man City have been like that for the last 10 games, and they came back against Newcastle, they get in there, and I don't think there's anything in them. Oh, they won this morning. Oh, we're not going to play today.
No, that's not the point. That wasn't the point. I said there was a tension. I thought. I thought there was a lack of freedom to Arsenal. I'm comparing like for like against a Newcastle team that can cause you problems. There was a lack of freedom about their movement, about their passing. And I got this, and I'm saying it was because of some of the technicalities in the way that the game played out, and it was a high caliber game in terms of tactics and almost like a chess game. But I also thought there was a lack of freedom about Arsenal. They didn't look themselves. And so when Bex asked, I said, now whether that's a consequence of seeing what City done and not putting you in the right frame of mind, I don't know. And I'm not saying it was or wasn't, but I'm saying there was a tension. There was something that was more rigid about Arsenal today than there was last week against Newcastle.
I'll tell you what, Rob, moving on to the game. And it's interesting you bring up an Arteta quote there from afterwards. Most people who listen to this or watch this show have watched the game, and we'll get on to Brighton's brilliance in the game a little later. I'll cut again. I think we should just cut to the chase here. And my question is, Rob, and I think you'll agree that I've been very pro Arsenal, very pro Mikel Arteta this season, what they've done, and that remains in. Of course, that remains given what they're doing and where they are. They're going to finish second place in the Premier League table, which is astonishing from last year. I'm going to say this. We watched together in the studio Arsenal struggle against Manchester City with the way that they played. And it wasn't anything super complicated. De Bruyne played in behind Ireland. The ball went a little bit further forward. They controlled things a little bit further back. Arteta didn't deal with that, or I don't say know how to deal with it, but he didn't influence that game. I'm saying seeing the same thing today, Rob. Brighton play the way that they play. Arsenal Football Club and Mikel Arteta should be absolutely well aware of the way that they build up, they play out. It's an incredible way of playing that we don't see too much. The closest really is Marcelo Bielsa in terms of the way that they do things a little bit. Another game where Mikel Arteta couldn't do anything, it seemed, to stop the flow, to change the flow, to change the rigid nature, Rob, the rigid nature of Arsenal. It was there because of the way that Brighton played. They played out from the back. They pressed like man to man. And when a game is going against you, this is Brighton, and I know they've been they're at Arsenal going for the title. Would you expect your manager to do something tactically, or if it needs to be off the bench? I know they haven't got a ton of great players on the bench. I know the depth of the squad is hurting Arsenal a little bit. But I was personally a little disappointed that Mikel Arteta couldn't just go, you know what, change that, bring a guy into midfield. No, I can't tell you right now what it could have been, but he's right here tactically, I understand. And yet he didn't have something to change the flow of Brighton having the ball, Arsenal chasing it. And I know what it's like to press a good team that possesses well. And Arsenal got tired of pressing because Brighton say, okay, keep coming because we're going to do it again. Goalkeepers, centre-backs, full-backs pushed on, midfield players. I mean, it's incredible the way they play. But so would you have expected a top manager, Rob, at a club like Arsenal going for the title to do something which changes the control of the game?
It's a really interesting point. And as you were talking, it was giving me, I'm pleased, it was giving me the time to formulate my response because my response is slightly different from yours in that I would say Mikel Arteta has such an overriding belief in the way that Arsenal play that he's a bit like, this is us, and that's them, and we'll play. And he did that against City. Now, it's interesting because as you were talking, I was thinking his sort of apprenticeship at City is very much like Pep. Pep plays how they play, and he doesn't worry too much about the opposition. And I'm wondering if that's part of what he's taken on. Like, if he changes Rob and they don't win, does he lose a bit of the confidence of the players, or the players think, oh well, that system that we got? I don't know. To me, it feels like he's wedded to a system. And today, De Zerbi ball beat Arteta ball, hands down. And you're right, there was no change. But I think that's because, again, maybe one of the things of this season for Arsenal Football Club, for Mikel Arteta and the players, is learning. And maybe it's a learning for Arteta, Rob, that on the days when his football doesn't start and they have problems, what are we going to do? What else can we do? Because today they continue to try and do the same things for the whole period of the game.
Yep. I know, Rob. And it's like, just thinking again there, like, put another player forward. Play another player forward, right? Play another player forward. So even if it goes back to the goalkeeper, you're kind of ready to press. Now, Brighton, as great as they are, if there's almost man-to-man in that area, they've got to hit it long.
Yeah.
And if you're Arsenal and you're a centre-back, you're on the front foot, you're ready for that ball, and you pin them in. You pin them in. Like we've seen City do with so many teams where they try and play out. I mean, Brighton, they're either gonna gift you the ball when you press them, or they're gonna hit it long. And when they hit it long, you've got to be ready for it. But there wasn't that. And Brighton could find their way through every time. Not every time, but they did make some mistakes back there. But for the most part, anyway, I'm just trying to think of something quick that they could have done to try and change the flow of the game. It's stunning what Brighton are doing, Rob. I don't know whether you want to jump onto them right now before we talk
we should do, because we've given Arsenal.
I mean,
we've had a look at Arsenal and this guy, this team, mate. It's so different. It's so high level from what we're seeing. It's kind of incredible. The confidence. He gets young Colwell at centre-back, Rob, playing out when he has to, knocks a couple of beautiful balls over the top. They can draw you in so that they're almost like coaxing you in to create that space in the middle areas where they can either get the fullbacks in or they can get the midfield players in, get turns, get on you. I just felt that Arsenal didn't have all the tools today to deal with it.
Yeah, and just to finish up on Arsenal couldn't find rhythm in the game because Brighton had the ball. They had the ball nearly all the time. Watching the first half, I'm like, I know the fans here want Arsenal to get on the ball and build a head of steam and find their passes and find their game. Brighton had the ball all the time. Brighton had the ball. I think they had 30% possession, Arsenal, in the first half. And it's tiring to chase the ball. But anyway, back on to Brighton. I'll start with this, Rob, that my particular love of the game comes from the beautiful game side of it. I absolutely adore, and why I love the game and I watch the game and appreciate the game is when teams play that football that's intricate, that's technical, that's tactical, and sometimes people call me and people like me football snobs. You know that you like the teams with the money, got the best players, they play the great football. Yeah, that's all very well and good. Well, this is Brighton. This is Brighton. And I love Brighton playing this way as much as Man City playing this way, or Arsenal in the past with Bergkamp and Vieira and Thierry Henry. Yeah. I loved this. This game was like, and this is nothing against Arsenal, and I tweeted out something that this is incredible from Brighton, and it's not anti-Arsenal, it's just good football, appreciating good football, and from a club that hasn't got the money that should be able to compete with Arsenal. The budget difference is insane, yet you've got a bunch of players recruited in a particular way, and a manager recruited in the same way for the same style, and it ends up that you outplay Arsenal, an Arsenal team that's had a brilliant season, that are challenging for the title with like 2 weeks left or whatever, and you play them off the park with your football, with your technicality, with your tactical bravery. I just couldn't get enough of it. I'll cut to my underappreciated, Rob, and I've got to bear with me. I've got to explain this a little bit. The underappreciated performer for Brighton is the chairman, Tony Bloom. And I'll try and be really quick on why it is. Tony Bloom is a professional sports statistician, software developer, database manager, algorithm creator.
He's got a big business card, hasn't he?
He's got a big business card. His analytical nature of the game in terms of gambling has won him a ton of money because his analytics have been so incredible that he knows the result of games a lot of the times. He bets on them, he's won a ton of money, to the point that bookmakers around the world go to Tony Bloom's company to set the odds in games. So instead of taking money from gambling companies, they pay him now to set the odds. So they've realised that he's hacked the system. Yeah. Anyway, the same supercomputer he uses for recruitment, and married that with areas that they specifically search for, which is like Paraguay, Ecuador, Chile, countries that the big boys don't go for. You're seeing the excellence in recruitment that's come from Tony Bloom's business, speciality, smarts, algorithms, database. That's how they do things. I was lucky to have a meeting with Paul Barber, the CEO of the football club, and he kind of explained it, that they've got a plan for 25 of the best positions in the club. And I apologise if people have heard me say this before, but the 25 most important people in this football club, from the chief executive to the director of football to the physio to the best 20 players, they've got a succession plan with 4 or 5 names under each position. So without Tony Bloom, this Brighton is nowhere near this. This is the best Brighton team of all time. Yeah. And it's because of Tony Bloom, the owner/chairman. And that's why he probably is underappreciated. Hopefully people understand why now. The Billy Bean, the data-driven, he's got an incredible data set. Every professional game that a player plays, he knows about. And the algorithms, the weightings on performances, and when he played, they won against this team. It was these 11 players, their weighted performances, it's off the charts. So he knows how to recruit. And you can go through the team today, the young players that they've got. Enciso scores the first goal, this 19-year-old from Paraguay, I think it is. They've got Alexis McAllister from Argentina. They've got Moses Caicedo, Ecuadorian player. They go to these markets and pick up these gems. I text the Paul Barber afterwards, Rob. I say, congratulations, that was an incredible performance. Your phone's going to be red hot this summer. Whether it's for the players, whether it's for the manager, his phone's going to be red hot. And it's down to the owner doing incredible recruitment work.
Gotta love it. Tony Bloom, Mr. Mustoe. I'm sure people will be Googling and doing a bit of research and finding out. But yeah, he's the man who sits at top of the organisation and makes sure it all works. And it's incredible what they're doing, how they're doing it with the manager, with these young players that they're bringing in, and not for any big sums of money. And listen, if they wanted to, Rob, they could sell 4 or 5 players and raise $200-300 million like that. Of course. But that's not necessarily the way they want to do it. And with De Zerbi, Rob, with him in charge, ambitions can be higher. Well, things can get better. I mean, this is a very special manager.
He ain't going to be there, is he?
Well,
he's not going to be there, is he?
Well,
he can't be there.
Let's see. I mean, I don't think he's got to be in a rush, Rob. I think he can build up his body of work. I think he can improve these players, go to the next level, maybe try and break into some Champions League if they get Europa this year, which will be the first time in Europe, and see. But no, I mean, he's destined, you would feel at some point, he's destined for a big club, either if not in the Premier League, of other leagues around the world, mate. He's a very special.
Did you see the? Sorry, Rob. Did you see there was a report this week that Daniel Levy's has been in touch with Brighton. Now, also this week, Julian Nagelsmann. Yeah. The German manager, apparently Spurs aren't pursuing him,
that option.
And there was a report that they've contacted Brighton. So, I mean, some people out there might say it's too early, and this is the first season in the Premier League, and he had a good squad of players that Tony Bloom and Paul Barber and everybody else has brought to the club. I understand that as an argument. It's a bit too soon. I would just love to see him Spurs is a difficult situation right now. He might need a little bit of recruiting expertise to bring in some of his type of players, but I think there's going to be people that wants him in this summer, and we know that Brighton will be ready for that. There'll probably be a clause in his contract, and they'll have somebody else lined up.
And just before we move on, mate, I just quick mention to the summer series, because if you want to watch Brighton, De Zerbi and a lot of those players, they'll be out here this summer on July the 22nd to July the 30th, out on the East Coast. All the information is available on www.premierleague.com/summer series. Get information about the tournament, about the teams and tickets. So, if you want a chance to see Brighton live and exclusive in USA in the summer, go along to premierleague.com/summer series. Before we move on, mate, let's talk about what could happen at this point next week. Manchester City could be title champions, and that depends on an Arsenal loss at Nottingham Forest next week, or an Arsenal draw at Nottingham Forest next Saturday, and then a win or draw versus Chelsea next Sunday for Manchester City, or win versus Chelsea would be enough to lift. So if Arsenal were to lose at Forest, Manchester City are crowned champions with having to kick a ball. Yeah, that's where we are. That's what today kind of culminated in.
Yeah, I hope that's not the case, Rob. I think it will be done on Sunday. Of course, Man City hosting Chelsea. They win that. No matter what happens in the other game, they win the title. Let's hope it's...
Yeah, you'd like
you
to
want
see
it to
it
be
won.
1-1 on the field.
Yeah,
on the field. That's when you get the best scenes and the best atmosphere and the best kind of feeling about it. But I think it will be next year. And I wrongly said last week that I thought Arsenal's title chase was going to come to an end at St James's Park, Newcastle. I was wrong, but it looks like now it pretty much has, and I think it'll be confirmed next weekend. And then we'll get into, we'll obviously react to that next weekend and talk a little bit more about City. But it was a fascinating couple of days in the Premier League for the top of the title.
Cool.
I just didn't see this, Rob. I didn't see this coming with Arsenal losing at home to Brighton.
No.
So.
Badly beaten, easily beaten in the end. It was almost to the point, Bob, as I was watching the game, and I was watching the game thinking, Brighton look like a team who are challenging for the top spot, and Arsenal look a bit like a team who are around Europa League football style. That's how good Brighton
Do you think that's the performance of the season, Rob? Is that the best performance of this?
It's
season,
right up there.
Concern
when you consider the occasion, what was at stake, the results of teams coming in, what had happened earlier in the day, and everything else. I mean, that was high end, technical, classic Premier League football, and again, Arsenal fans were sort of leaving the stadium a little bit early. I think they've recognised that their season's gone, and I just hope, and I said it in the show, that the last game's at home to Wolves, and I hope they get a full house. I hope they get the reception and the celebration of what has been a brilliant season for them, and recognition that there's still work to do, mate. Still, people have to come in the door. Yeah. Everybody's going to be better for this experience. Get a summer, get refreshed, and get ready to come back again.
Yeah. They need some new players in the market. Yeah. And again, we'll react to it, Rob, when it was confirmed next weekend. But how I feel about Arsenal. It's been a brilliant season. They've proved so many people wrong from the start of the season, and yet they've also proved that there's still work to do. They're not quite ready to compete with a team that's just won, I think it's 11 Premier League. I mean, it's just, they're an incredible side, and I just think as long as Pep is at that club, it's going to be so hard for anybody else to compete with them at the top. Yeah. So, good stuff.
Let's move it to Ellen Road, my friend, because this was the first kickoff of the weekend. Big Sam, having said he's as good as any manager in the league and lost 2-1 to Manchester City, but was facing Eddie Howe, a Newcastle team that he has managed, one of many that Sam's managed in the Premier League. We were interested seeing what a week's work would look like under Sam, how the team might be a little bit different under Sam. He managed to get Rodrigo and Bamford in the team. That I thought was quite interesting. He bolstered the midfield with Robin Koch as a defensive midfield player in front of a back four, and Robles was in goal again. And to be honest, mate, I thought they started the game fiery. I thought they were committed. The challenges were going in. They were winning 50-50s and knockdowns. I thought they sent a real great tempo and got themselves the goal, Rob, that Sam celebrates, Ellen Road celebrates, and it was takeoff for couldn't have wished it any better.
No, that's right. I mean, first off, there's no question that Sam Allardyce has re-energised Leeds United, re-energised the dressing room, re-energised the fans with the staff that he's brought with him. Robbie Keane and Carl Robinson's in it. You can see them working and around the players. It has re-energised the football club. And also, Rob was watching the game as well. And it's not like Sam has really pulled them back, by the way. It's not as though they're parking a bus. Obviously, there's more defensive focus. There's changes that he's made. He changed the goalkeeper. He's changed Robin Koch into midfield and a few other changes he's made. But there's still Leeds. They still get forward. Yeah. They still get in the box. If I was on the show, Robin, my first reaction afterwards would have been, they should have won the game. They should have won the game. They made two errors.
He talked about
you
that.
give two penalties away like that.
Yeah, he talked about that.
Yeah, and then you miss a penalty. There's two. I mean, another day they could have won that. Newcastle were rattled. Newcastle didn't bring their best stuff, and yet they got help with some. And I guess this is the reason why they're down there, because players make poor decisions. And Big Sam said afterwards, I've told my players to stay on the feet. And Max Verber didn't stay on his feet. So a couple of mistakes for penalties. Patrick Bamford, who struggled all year really with trying to find his best stuff, misses the penalty, which would have made it 2-0. And it ends up being a draw on a point that could have been, Rob, so much better.
Absolutely, and you're seeing the benefits of his work, and it got me thinking of it. It was yesterday after I went home after the game, and I thought, you're right. Leeds. I think there's a belief around Leeds now, from the fan base, from the players, from the football club, that they got a chance, Rob. And if they can get to Spurs needing to maybe win or needing to get something, you kind of feel like they got a chance. Spurs look like they're limping towards the end. And it got me thinking, really, and I listened to the Sam interview after the game, and he said exactly as you've talked about, going to ground, bad challenges, we don't need to do it. He said, I've told the boys and that somebody's going to get a telling off this week, and, he puts it in his own way. And it got me thinking about Sam, really, and sometimes, Rob, that he sometimes gets a bit of a hard rap from people, because of the way he is and the old school and, parking the bus kind of thing, because it wasn't that. And I was looking at the team and I was looking at the improvement. I was looking at, he makes some interesting, Robin Koch in the middle of the centre-back midfield.
Yeah, better.
Interesting, better. Reads danger, maybe not great on the back line, but much better in front and knows where things are coming, etc., etc. But the point I want to get to is his line last week was a throwaway, and we know why he's done it and all that stuff. I'm as good as anyone, Pep, and that. And I thought to myself, we know what Pep does, and we've seen De Zerbi's, and we've seen people like at the top end, and you go, that's brilliant. And as you would say, like if you're a football snob, that's what you love. But there's something in what Sam Allardyce can go to a football club and do, Rob. He's been in the building last 7 days, I think. And he's turned and changed a set of players that I would question whether Pep could do the same. Could Pep go in there? I know if we were put on the foot, Sam could play maybe a bit better football, but he couldn't play the football that Pep's playing with the City players. Well, could Pep go into Leeds and fix all those problems? And the way Pep wants to play in our possession, when you've got players who probably can't keep the ball as well and all, make bad decisions and go to ground and all that. And I kind of thought, we should be thankful that we got people like Sam around, and there's still a place for people like Sam in our game. And he, as you said, Ellen Road was re-energised when a few weeks ago it looked done and dusted, and I just think he deserves a little bit of credit.
Yeah, well, what he is, Rob, he's a specialist, and he might not thank me for saying that, and he might not, and that might be not doing him a fair amount of justice, Rob, because he's more than that. But he has become a specialist at improving teams defensively to scrape some points together to improve. Yeah. And he's improved multiple 4 or 5 teams. West Brom was a difficult one during COVID. He explained that. He couldn't get the same kind of dynamic going. But that's what he does. And he's a specialist. And I tell you what, the way the Premier League is going, there might be a few other managers that might try and emulate that, because they're going to be in work a long time. We've seen the desperate nature of the Premier League now. It's getting more desperate every single season, and clubs are looking for guarantees. They're looking for, and I'm telling you right now, Sam will work next year. He'll work next year. Even if Leeds United go down, it'll be the first or second phone call from these clubs that are towards the bottom, and they want to find a way out of it. There's a really strong argument, and Sam said it himself, that Radrizzini, the owner of Leeds United, whether it's Victor Orta that persuaded him to go for Javi Gracia instead of Sam Allardyce, that was a critical mistake that the football club owner made. Because if Big Sam was there months ago when Gracia came in, I think we're seeing something different now. But that's history, and that can't be changed right now. But I think you make a good point, and I would say he's blimmin' good, because he's been there so many times before. I recognise the signs here of teams that concede goals and get relegated, and I know what to do to stop it. Yeah. And I think, you're right, they've improved in the space of a week. But they're still alive and kicking. The way they played, they could have beat Newcastle. They put Newcastle off their game. They were ruffled. They couldn't get their football going, their rhythm going. Bamford misses a penalty.
The penalty is a big
Callum
miss,
Wilson. And ruthless Wilson scores.
But in the end, Robbie, it might be a good point for both teams. I think, obviously Newcastle trying to top 4, and a good point for Leeds. Somebody's going to stay up by the odd point. That might be one for Leeds.
Yep.
Let's move to Old Trafford. Manchester United playing Wolves. Manchester United coming off back-to-back defeats, this time under Ten Hag. So a little bit of it under the microscope in terms of, trying to establish that top 4 spot. We know Liverpool are in good form, 6 straight wins, and play against Leicester tomorrow. So there was a bit of pressure on United to get the job done. They did in the end. Martial and Garnacho get the goals. I wasn't keeping too much of an eye on this one. Stephen Warnock was. I don't know how much you saw this, Rob, but
yeah, it's one of those in that window, wasn't it?
Clean sheet was important. I think De Gea's now at least a joint Golden Gloves winner with the clean sheet. A couple of goals, Martial scoring. Anthony who played him in, and Martial scores. So they get the goals. Again, I didn't see much more than the game, but I think we're at the stage with United where it's about the results. It's about getting top four football and moving this club in the right direction.
Yeah, it was a incredibly important victory, Rob. I mean, again, lots of games going on in this window. I got a good look at the game, and it's an incredibly important victory. It gives them a little bit of breathing space now. Liverpool obviously on fire, winning every single game. United are kind of limping a little bit. I still got the few talking points I thought out of the game, Rob, is Anthony. Yeah. And again, sat with my boys watching it, and they're frustrated at Anthony and his consistency. Yeah. And I get that, but there's good bits too. Yeah. And I think there has been an improvement in Anthony through this season. I'm not ready to say that he's never going to be a star player at Manchester United. I think there are signs. Yeah. He's got improvements to make, but he does really well for the assist for Martial in the first goal. Does really, really well there. And there's frustrating parts, of course, but he's a young player. So I thought he was an interesting storyline in terms of how he played. I thought the other one for Man United, Robin, is nothing that we haven't said or seen before. They still look vulnerable defensively. Yeah. And
Varane was back, wasn't he? Which was interesting. Varane was back in the team.
Varane was back, but I still don't think they team defend very well. And they just look a little vulnerable. Wolves can play some stuff. They got through a few times. Whenever they attacked, I'm looking at United and they're spread out. And there's like two or three that are out of the game defensively because they can't affect it. They're too far away. So it's something that, I think I've said it multiple times, really enjoy United on the ball. Yeah. Really enjoy the way that they play, the philosophy that they play with so many people getting forward. They're creative, they score goals. It's really, really good. But vulnerably, defensively, a little vulnerable again. But who cares? At this point in the season, who cares? They got to finish in the top four. The manager said that. And what have they got now? They've got a 4-point gap to Liverpool, same games played. Now, of course, Liverpool play tomorrow. Yeah. So the main story here, Rob, is that United need the 3 points badly, and they got it. They got them.
Let's move to Stamford Bridge, mate. Always a story, always something going on at the bridge. Chelsea hosted Nottingham Forest. Forest went back to this system that we saw against Liverpool, 3 at the back, 2 wing-backs. No Brennan Johnson up front. You had Awani with Danilo and Gibbs-White underneath. Yates and Mangala in the middle of the park, and Aurier and Lodi in the wing-back position. So, again, well set up. A lot of things we talked about with Steve Cooper, good things, the organisation. I think people understand their role and their positions in the team. Went there, obviously, to make sure that Chelsea didn't have too much possession, have too much control. They funneled Chelsea into the middle of the pitch where they were strong. And got themselves 1-0 up through Awani, who's starting to look much more of a Premier League player, Rob. I must admit, when we first saw him, looked a bit rough and didn't, I think, have the understanding of his role in the team, but much more defined now and gives them a focal point. And they score with a loaded cross, a Awani header past Edouard Mendy, my friend, who was in goal for the first time since before the World Cup for Chelsea, which was an interesting choice, and I'll give you my thoughts on that after. But having got 1-0 up, Forest, I'm sure Steve Cooper will be a little bit disappointed that they allowed Chelsea back into the game.
Yeah, so I didn't have a good look at this one, Rob, is in that window. I did see the goals, though, of course, and Taiwo Awani. I mean, there's so many players there. Awani's, I think, has always been the preferred choice of Steve Cooper. Yeah, we've talked about how he's kind of narrowed it into a very much a close starting 11, which I think he needed to do. And also, by the way, the amount of injuries that they've had, Forest, I mean, they needed the 30-odd players that they've got because they had like at one point, they had at least 11 players injured. So they continue to fight. I like the big striker. I mean, who doesn't love a striker, Rob, that when you really need him at the end of the season, steps up with goals and a brave header for the first one. Give me a more sense of Chelsea, Rob, because, again, I can't look at it
Chelsea was set up.
Other games. So
team selection was interesting.
FedEx
Obviously,
up front,
there's a few injuries and whatever, but yeah, Mendy came in for Kepa, which was his first start since before the World Cup.
Okay.
We've got Chalobah and Lewis Hall in the fullback positions. Buddy Shield and
Cool, is that
Silva.
all they've got? Is that all they got for fullbacks, Rob?
There was no James, no Chilwell, no Cucurella. Aspilicueta was on the bench, I believe. And then it was Enzo, Kovacic, Gallagher as a 3. And then Maduaku on the left-hand side, Maduaku on the right-hand side, Sterling on the left-hand side, and Felix up front.
Felix up front.
Felix up front doesn't really work for me. He comes so deep, Rob. There were times he was coming off the centre, going up towards his own centre-backs to get the ball. Wow. He's a playmaker. He wants to get on the ball and be involved in build-up. He's not a centre-forward, so that became a problem. Little disjointed Chelsea at times. You know, they pass with any aim of where they're going to, what's the end product going to be, which continues to be the same story. I wondered, Rob, and again, Beck talked about the team, and the news was breaking about Pochettino coming in, and which has been confirmed now broken by David Ornstein, our Premier League insider. You know, we're getting to paper signings of Pochettino, and it should be announced sometime early this week. And when I saw the team sheet, I said to Bex, I won't be surprised if Pochettino's had a little influence on this, because I think between now and the end of the season, although he's not going to officially take the role and be at the club, I wonder if he might say to Frank, let's chuck in Mendy this week. Let me find out about him. Let's put in Lewis Hall. Is he going to be good enough, or do we need to get him out on loan? Let's have a look at Conor Gallagher. Has he got the legs and the ability to be a mid? I just get the sense that some things might be happening behind the scenes at Chelsea, and that Frank's the front of house, but Poch might be starting to get things worked out. He's got so much to do, Rob. The day he goes into the football club, anything that he can do between now and the end of the season has got to be a bonus.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting shout. Yeah, and I think that would be smart of the club, as long as Frank Lampard's okay with it, Rob. I mean, it's still Frank Lampard's managerial reputation here that they're dealing with if they're gonna make changes on behalf of the new manager. So I know what you say. I still think that Frank Lampard would have to absolutely agree with those to say, well, I don't, you know what I mean? It's what about Pochettino, Rob, taking over like immediately? I know there's not much left now, a couple of weeks left.
Yeah.
But is there benefit in that, or is it just it's literally too late now?
So it's just interesting again,
by standing on the sideline.
Yeah, I think Stephen Warnock and I maybe had a slightly different view. I think I would like him in the building. I don't think he has to be front of house and thing. I just like him in the building, Rob. I just feel that this football club needs some accountability, some football leadership on the football side of things. It needs to start
a new direction.
Yeah, new direction. You start putting together your culture and building what you want and how things are going to happen. And there's just so many little things that he can be doing that you and I both know that you can train when your manager's not on the training ground. He's in the office. He might be having a meeting or something. And training's okay, and it's 70% and 75% in training. The moment the manager comes out of that meeting and walks on that training ground, Rob, it goes up 20% because the boss is here.
Yeah.
And I think Chelsea need the bosses here.
Yeah, and a new sense of urgency.
Yeah.
A new beginning.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to know how they're going to do it, what's happening now, whether he has having an influence or whether he's not. One thing's for sure, Pochettino's got to be all over that football. And when he signs that paper, he's got to be all over that club, whether we see him on the sideline or not. He's got to be all over that club, finding out everything that he can, looking at tons of games from this season, lots of performances, sitting down with directors of football now, and there's a few of them, I believe, at the club to try and figure out what their strategy is going to be. But it's, in my understanding, every club that I know the details of, the director of football and the head coach, they work together. They work together in terms of, listen, I feel like we need a left back and a centre midfield player. And the director of football, okay, well, what about this person? This person, well, I like him. Okay, we'll take a look at him. So I think it does work together. So the sooner Pochettino can be making suggestions to the directors of football at the club and a head of recruitment there, then progress can start to be made and mistakes can be corrected, etc., etc., etc. So
my
looks like it's
my
gonna be
only
Pochettino.
closing on.
And by the way,
go on, mate. Yeah.
oh. No, I was just going to say, good choice, Pochettino.
Yeah,
It's a good choice for the club right now.
Brilliant choice, but he's got to be given a bit of time, Rob. This club's in a mess. You know, you talk about Forest and Chelsea. They've both got 500,000 players in each dressing room. I mean, there's so many players. Must be two biggest squads in the league, and he's got to be given a bit of time to deal with the things he needs to do, and maybe do a couple of windows where he's going to wheel and deal, and some are going to go out and some are going to go in. And before the project really gets going how he'd like, there's some cleaning of the business to do, and I think, you know, he's got to be allowed the time to do that before we start to see the progression. But just want to finish with on a Forest line, because Sterling got a couple of goals, a beautiful second goal on a breakaway, scores Ben's one in, so he gets a brace. Yeah. And then, to be fair to Forest, Rob, they come back again, a set piece, they get a ball into Awani, it gets up just onside. It was one of those where they weren't sure if he was going to be VAR was going to say he was offside, but he wasn't. He got the goal, he got back in the game. It's a really good point for them. Gets them on to 34 points and out at the bottom, 16th. And you get the sense one more win for Forest, Rob. And guess who they've got next week at home? The mighty Gunners. You know, I'm not sure we're not sure what state the Gunners are going to be in by the time they get to Forest. Forest could be buzzing with that crowd there. You know,
I just thought 34 points, Rob. Might 34 points, which they have now, Forest, with 2 games left. I don't know. I think a point. I think a point might be enough.
35.
35.
So well,
2 games if they can get a draw. Yeah. Just one thing, Rob, and I don't know whether I'm a bit ahead of stuff here, but just back on Chelsea, we are hoping to meet with the owner. We're hoping, both sides we want to chat to Todd Bowley, and we might be meeting him in the next couple of weeks. I'm sure it's going to be off the record, so it's just to get an understanding of what the club's going through, or how he's found it in the Premier League. I think it's beneficial on both sides to have a better understanding of each other going forward into next season, and us to able to report and to analyse more based on some real facts that we've gained from the top man, Todd Bowley. So I think I just wanted to bring it in, Rob, to our
it's a good
viewers
point.
and listeners that's something that we think's happening next
and
week,
hopefully we can help communicate better with a lot of the Chelsea fans here in the US, because there is plenty of them, and they've been concerned about their football club. So hopefully we can bring a bit of certainty and transparency to some of the things that they're doing. We have to talk about the team that's left the Premier League this weekend, my friend. It was Southampton, who basically needs to win all 3 games to have any kind of chance of staying up. A 2-0 defeat to Fulham, almost summed up in a moment of the game. At one end, Alcaraz went through in the second half, was just offside, put the ball in the back of the net, was just offside. From a resulting free kick, Fulham had the ball, work it up to the other end of the pitch, and Vinicius ends up luckily gets a goal that falls in his path, puts Fulham 1-0. Mitrovic comes on and make it a second, and I think the ending we all knew was coming, but we were waiting to see if Southampton could delay it. Didn't happen. It kind of sums up what's been a horrible season for Southampton. It's this team that sacked Ralph Hasenhüttl, who's managed to keep the team on 15th and higher places in the league. And got worse, Rob. The Nathan Jones appointment was a disaster. Ruben Selles was a risk that hasn't worked. They had 3 wins when Ralph Hasenhüttl left. They've only got 6 in the end. Sporting Republic is the ownership group, isn't it? They, Rob, have made some really poor decisions, and now have one of the biggest decisions they've got to make in who they appoint and how they deal with a relegation and trying to bounce back.
Yeah, again, I've gone over this a couple of times before, I think, Rob, but no, you're right, absolutely right. Sport Republic are the owners of the football club. They're backed by a super rich billionaire Serbian business guy that's basically said to him, give us a lot of money, we're going to buy some clubs. Rasmus Ankersen is the main guy at Sport Republic, did a brilliant job as director of football at Brentford. Yeah. Again, another one of those that are into the data and all that. And he backed his judgment, Rob. He backed his judgment on his expertise and his databases of picking young players that he thought would take Southampton to a place. It's almost like picking the great players before they're great. And the theory is brilliant. The theory is great. And there will be a couple of them that are really good that they bought. But when you have so many of them and you don't go with experienced signings, like, for example, Fulham did. Yeah. Fulham went with Premier League experience to add to what they already had. Southampton really made a lot of signings. Yeah. Really made a lot of young signings, unproven in the Premier League. In fact, probably unproven at very highest level in European football. And it was too much for them. Ralph Hasenhüttl is a fascinating example of, sometimes you don't know when a team is struggling. Is it the coach? Is it the players? Yeah. Well, this one, it was the players. And they're not quite ready for the challenges and the quality of the Premier League. Ralph Hasenhüttl was doing a pretty good job with a tough bunch of players. I say tough bunch of players. They're talented young players. Yeah. But as you know, this league, my goodness, like you can't hope that you've got enough talent. So that's mistakes from the manager. You said, and Nathan Jones. Mistakes in thinking that good young players is enough to stay in this division without the experience, the toughness, the know-how to stay there. And that's the harsh lessons that Sport Republic, Rasmus Ankersen, who's an owner now and not just a director of football, has taken on the chin. That being said, they probably can sell a couple of players for some big money. Yeah. The other young players might be happy enough to stay at the club. They might not get another better opportunity. He might have enough there, given that the next recruitment of the next manager is going to be good, to come back up again. But it was a harsh lesson, and you could say similar at Leeds United, Rob, where lots of young players came in, and it's been or unproven. Even your Aronsons and your Siniesters and your Somervilles and your Nyontos that are good players, but they were signed more than experienced defenders, for example, to help them out. So it's all about recruitment. It really, really is. And Southampton, with these new guys in charge, have made some bad decisions, and this is what happens when you do that in the Premier League. It's unforgiving. It really is.
And I don't know if you heard, there was a very honest, frank press conference with James Ward-Prowse after the game, and he came out and spoke.
Right. Didn't say it, Rob. What did he say?
Yeah, spoke really well, Rob, about the football club. Said there's been bad decisions made from the start of the season, both on and off the pitch. He said things weren't right. There's things that haven't been right at the football club that have not been addressed. He said we all should have done better. Everybody could have done and should have done more. And it was really interesting as he was talking. So I went back again and listened to the interview and did a little bit of research, Rob, because you kind of think, wonder what he's alluding to. And I kind of unearthed a few things. And again, they're all opinion pieces, but people were talking about, what Ward-Prowse was getting to. And the suggestions are that there was unrest in the camp, and it became a bit of a young and old camp. And apparently some of the younger players who've come in have kind of, the moment they've arrived at Southampton, think they've arrived. And late for team meetings, not attentive, messing around in training. So there's a rift between the old players who know what have kept us in the league and the young guns who are coming in thinking everything's a bit okay. So really interesting to find out. There's talk about the manager situation and how some players were going to the ownership group with Ralph and not happy with him and voicing their opinions. And so you get behind the scenes that these other things that play here. Yeah. And he said, and the thing that came out, somebody mentioned, Rob, do you remember not so long ago, we may be talking 5-6 years ago, when Southampton was almost the Brighton, the envy of the Premier League. Remember when they had the black box? Yep. And everyone was talking about, and remember, this is a team that sold Van Dijk, Mane, Luke Shaw.
So many.
Yeah. I mean, Sneijderlin, Højbjerg. I mean, over the last 6-7 year period, what's gone out of that football club and where they are, it's an incredible position they're in.
But that's just when recruitment is great, right? And you keep selling your best players, as long as you get other good ones, it's all good. But when the ones come in that aren't good, then you're in trouble, aren't you? It kind of falls down when the new ones coming in aren't the same as the Højbjergs and the Van Dijks and everybody else. So. Interesting, though, mate. Interesting.
Just one last question on that. I want to put this one to you. You're James Ward-Prowse. You're a current England international. You're top scorer, free kick quality. I would suspect would be in demand for other clubs in the Premier League. But you've been at Southampton since you were a kid through the academy. It means a lot to you. You can tell when he's talking. You can tell that he's not happy with what's gone on. what do you do? If somebody comes in? Do you go back to the Premier League and try and finish clear there? Or do you say, I'm going to give Southampton a year to see if we can jump back up?
Great question, mate. It's a great question. My immediate response is that you get your head down and don't make any motion or noises to get a move out of there. But if a move comes up to a big club in the Premier League, you take it. You just got to take it. That being said, I have been in the situation. Now, I wasn't as good as James Ward-Prowse. I got relegated with Middlesbrough Football Club, and we had a lot of star players that ended up leaving, and I rolled my sleeves up like many others at the club that have been there for many, many seasons, and we bounced straight back up again, back into the top flight, and that was incredibly satisfying.
Was that with Brian Robson?
To grind out.
Was that with Robbie?
Yeah. We went down with those 3 points we got deducted for. We broke the rules, and it was the club's fault and not the players' fault. We went down by two points that season, so that decision got us relegated. But a lot of the players stayed, and the ones that have been always there, not the flashiest ones, we stayed and we got back up again.
Was Robbo being the manager a big part of that though? Because what I'm trying to say with Southampton at the moment, we don't know who's in charge of that ship, do we? And no, you've got to have some kind of, Vincent Kompany's gone in at Burnley, and I think impressed the guys, and the record speaks for itself. We don't know so far. The Sporting Republic have made some bad decisions, some bad hires.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, mate. And that's right. We did have our manager stay with us, and that helps. Continuity helps. And of course, he persuades people to stay as well. Yeah. So yeah, it's a great point. And who knows who they're gonna. So yeah, back to my first answer. If somebody comes in, you go, yeah, I'd like to talk to them. But I think Ward-Prowse isn't the type to say, right, relegated, right, come on, agent, I want to get out of here. There's some people do, by the way, because we had that when we went down. We had 2 or 3 that are like, I'm off out of here. This is not good, not for me. He's not that guy. So again, get your head down. If somebody comes in, you're probably going to take the move if it's a good one.
Okay, mate. So we'll have to wait and see what happens at Southampton between now and the end of the season. Who's appointed, who stays, who goes, and how they're going to deal with it with a championship of 46 games. Very, very rough and tumble. As you said, Mustoe, you've been through it. You know what it's like trying to get back up. Southampton got to try and do it at the first time of asking. Listen, mate. Let's get to a few other results before we wrap things in. Aston Villa 2, Tottenham 1 in a game that. Aston Villa now have 57 points in the Premier League, the same as Tottenham.
Same as Tottenham.
I mean, it's just another example of the incredible work that Unai Emery is doing at that football club, mate.
No, it is. It's an amazing turnaround. And given the Villa of the Steven Gerrard that we saw earlier, there's I see that Jamie Carragher, the Sky pundit, put a list together of potential. Adding De Zerbi to it of managers of the season, and Unai Emery's on that list. There's a ton of them. There's a lot of managers that have done great work this year in improving their teams, and you don't always see that when managers change. And of course, some changes didn't work out, particularly at the bottom of the league table. But no, I mean it's a great story. Aston Villa are a big club. They're one of the ones. I'm looking at the league table right now. They're eighth place. That's where they're that bigger club. Yeah. They're that bigger club with that much history. And they got a great manager now. That's a perfect fit for the club. So no, another good win for them. And Tottenham they're just drifting. They're just drifting, and we all know that. And they're another club that's had a bit of a disaster of a campaign with Antonio Conte, and then deciding to switch him out. And again, Rob, with the things that we've read about Nagelsmann that we thought would be kind of perfect for them, they're not interested. Who are they going to get, and when are they going to do it? And the director of football situation in the club as well. So, Tottenham's another one that's got to give itself a shake. And again, it goes back to recruitment, Rob, of getting the right people. And we have seen Aston Villa, Arsenal, Newcastle. You get the right person, things can turn pretty quickly. And I honestly think that can be the same at Spurs as well if they get the right guy.
Somebody has got the right person. Not sure if he's on Jamie Carragher's list. Roy Hodgson. Crystal Palace 2, Bournemouth 0, and probably one of the only games this weekend where it didn't have that much riding on it. 2 teams who were in possible relegation trouble have got themselves out of it. I saw quite a bit of this game, Rob. Did it as one of my highlights in that 10 o'clock window. And I've got to tell you, it was one of those pleasurable watches of three very talented footballers. Eze, Elise, and Zaha, mate, were absolutely the difference. Between those three, if you could find a regular goal scorer at the top of the pitch, and with what else they got, the football club and Roy Hodgson, it's a very, very tasty-looking Palace team. And it's interesting, Rob, because there was talk about Zaha's contract up and whether he's going to stay or not. And he's been linked to the likes of Arsenal and Newcastle. He's going on a free transfer this summer. I'd be disappointed. I just think, stay at Palace, work with these young players. They're giving you a new leaf of life. The football club's got a different energy about it now. Didn't half play well, and I don't know if you saw the Eze second goal. I think he's got 10 goals now for the season in Premier League. At least 10 Premier League assists. He's a special talent. But the Eze pass, Elise pass to Eze, the Eze draw inside 3 players, smashed in the top corner. My goal of the day by a distance.
No, I did see it. And it's I just like the team. I mean, even the defence, Rob, it was a new defence, wasn't it, for Vieira, with Gahey and Joaquin Anderson, the 2 players that are brought in from other clubs, and they've been brilliant. You got Tyrell Mitchell at left back, who's an excellent fullback. Whether they try and get a different right back, I don't know. But I just think Roy Hodgson will continue, Rob. I think Roy Hodgson will continue. This is a different squad than he left. He left it a much different squad. Nowhere near the same ability of the squad that's got now. Roy Hodgson now, given this squad, is doing good stuff. So, I don't know, we'll see. It'll be all about Roy Hodgson, but if you're Steve Parish, Rob, do you think he's saying to Roy, listen, if you want it, it's yours for next season? Do you think he's saying that to him?
I think I'd be tempted just based on what I've seen now, and if the players are happy, and it might also influence whether Wilf is happy to stay or not. And I mean, listen, I sense, and again, just a little bit of intel, Graham Potter is their choice. They believe Graham Potter's a good fit for Crystal Palace. Now, whether Graham Potter
that'd be good.
Is ready for that, wants that job, feels that's the right job for him after the Chelsea, he's had a bit of time out, he's been paid up, he's probably hungry to come back again. There's a bit of Brighton Palace thing going on there. They'd have to work that out. But, yeah, Graham Potter is an interesting one that's on the radar. But, yeah, listen, I think if you're Steve Parish and you're coming to the summer, you're not as worried as you were. And if things don't go well with talks with other people, you got Roy there who can hold the ship for you. So, yeah, things looking up for Palace.
Can I just side note a little bit here?
Yeah.
Just a quick one. You know, the way that Chelsea have gone since he's left, is there an argument that Tottenham might say, you know what? Maybe Potter wasn't. Maybe Potter did the best he could in a very difficult situation. Maybe Potter. What? Maybe Graham Potter is still.
It's really funny that you said that.
Maybe
right?
Spurs is a better fit.
It's really funny you said that, because last night I'm getting far too deeply thinking in these things, and I'm thinking it's almost like a merry-go-round, you know. Poch wasn't good enough at Spurs, but he's got the Chelsea job. Tuchel wasn't good enough at Chelsea, but he's got the Munich job. Nagelsmann wasn't good enough at Munich, but hasn't got the Chelsea job. And Potter wasn't good at Chelsea. Could he end up at Spurs? I mean, it's like this moving chairs of 4 or 5 young managers, and who knows at the time. By next week, somebody else might be in the frame. Listen, one manager who deserves some credit in closing, mate, is Thomas Frank, whose Brentford team beat a West Ham side who've probably got their eyes on the Alkmaar second leg in the Europa Conference League semi-final. But there's no Ivan Toney for Brentford, Rob, so you missed 20 goals at the top end of the pitch and all that he brings. But Bowman, Wiese got the goals in the first half, and Bowman with a turnover, good win possession, Wiese with a set-piece throw-in routine that we've seen him work. And we were talking about it actually today, me and Steve Warnock, mate. The long throw seems to be having a comeback in the game, doesn't it? Long throw-ins. Remember the Rory Delap Stoke days where he used to launch it in?
Big Sam's brought it back in at Leeds.
Yeah, everybody's gone to a big throw.
McKennie doing it at Leeds. Yeah.
Just before we close, mate, I've got to get my underappreciated performer of the weekend, and I've left it till the last. And I'm not sure we've ever had him before. Thomas Frank, my friend. When we talk about managers and expectations and building players and making teams better and players better and you know, teams struggling at the bottom of the league. And you look at, you know, I'm looking at Southampton and Leicester and Leeds and Everton. Forest to a lesser degree, West Ham and Bournemouth and maybe a Palace. And Thomas Frank, Rob, is this level kind of coach who plays a good style of football, who works with his players, has generally got a great relationship. You can see that there's a real chemistry between the two. It's very rare since Brentford have been in the Premier League that I've seen a day where I've said, nah, they didn't really turn up today, weren't really at it. They've not won all the time, they've not played great all the time, but there's a certain something you get from a Thomas Frank team. And if he was available, Rob, and people were looking, I think there's a few who could do a lot worse than go take Thomas Frank. I know his football might not be quite as maybe high end as some may think, but I also think you've got to remember the players he's working with. Some who's the first time in the Premier League. I think they play different styles. I think they give teams problems. There's no doubt he's developed players who could all be sold for big profits. So anyway, my underappreciated performer of the week is Thomas Frank, my friend.
Yeah, I think given where they are on the league table right now, is it going to be their best ever finish or something?
Yeah,
They're going to be top 10, probably finish for Brentford. I think that might be guaranteed, I think I read, given where they are right now. Certainly is a great shout. Second season for this team to kick on has been excellent. They have got an incredible goal scorer in Ivan Toney. He's got 20 Premier League goals, which is great for any manager. But no, I totally agree with the comment you made about they're always up for it. And there's one thing that I remember from his press conferences that he always says about the attitude of his squad is tremendously is brilliant. It's a big part of it. I mean, I guess some might think that he potentially has earned a position at Tottenham, maybe. Not for me. And I'll be honest here, Rob, again, like, I don't know. It's just how I feel about things. I'll put him in the category right now of when Sean Dyche was doing good things at Burnley. Yeah, I totally appreciated what he did. I just couldn't. Might be just me. See a good fit at one of a top 8, a big club of Sean Dyche at that time. Rightly or wrongly, it didn't happen. But I just felt like, even though I love what he does and it's a little bit different and it's effective and he's respectful and he talks great, exactly the same with Thomas Frank. All those things. Mixes his game up well, physicality. Yeah. I just don't think he would be ready, in my opinion, to jump up to one of them. Now, if you have another season next year, Rob, and he does even better, which is a very, very difficult ask, then maybe I change my mind. But right now, I think he's at a great club with great recruitment. They love him to bits. He works brilliant with his squad. Obviously, he can re-motivate this team from season to season, from game to game, and it's doing a stunning job there. I just don't think he's ready. That's my opinion, Rob. Do you differ from that? Do you think he could jump into a top?
Yeah, I think he's a brilliant communicator. I think with better players, I just think sometimes you only see the capacity of a manager dependent on the level of the players they've got. I think he can go next level. I think he's an educated guy. He looks a smart coach. He doesn't rely on just one system. They work on good basics, Rob, set pieces and things like that. They come up with so many different ways of doing things. He's got, he might need to take some of that group with him a little bit like his recruitment and his assistants and that. So it might be, Thomas Frank at plus however many. But I'd like to at some point him being given the chance. It might take another year, and I don't think he needs to be in a rush because I think he's doing great work at the moment. No. But it's really interesting. They beat West Ham 2-0. I know West Ham fans are still a little bit, you hear the remarks about David Moyes. I think West Ham would be a really good fit for Thomas Frank. But we'll have to wait and see.
You said sorry, mate. You just said something that interests me a little bit. Like, I think he's excellent at basics. Yeah, he's done the basics brilliantly well at Brentford. But obviously, that jump up requires more than basics. It requires something special, something different, something clever. You got to beat teams that regularly that you'd expect to beat, and that might take something other than just the basics done really, really well. Anyway, just a quick point from what you said, but no, there's no question he's on that list of potential manager seasons. Had a brilliant season. It's a great shout for underappreciated because people aren't talking a lot about Thomas Frank. No. But of course, we see the team, we see the interviews, we see everything that he does, and he's an impressive guy.
Yeah, and we see how difficult it is to stay in the Premier League. Just ask Southampton about that, who had 11 seasons in there, mate, and are going to be one in the Championship next season. Yep. Listen, mate, on a weekend when Gundogan came good at Goodison, mouthful, the Zerbi ball proved too much for Arsenal at the Emirates, and it looks like handing the title to City. We'll be back on Wednesday, that's May the 17th, when we'll look back at the 2 Champions League semi-finals, see if Manchester City can get over Madrid and face one of the Milan teams in the final that takes place in Istanbul on June the 10th. But for now, I'm Earle, he's Mustoe, together with the 2 Robbies. Thanks for watching and listening. Be safe, stay healthy. For all the female mothers out there, have a happy Mother's Day. It's a good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
Good night.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. For even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you over there.